Welcome to episode 64 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories their way in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Dave Jenkins grew up in relative poverty in a neighborhood plagued by crime, drugs, a lack of education, as well as positive role models. Yet, he was an early adapter to technology. Dave learned to program those big, room-sized computers. Today, he still works in information technology, but is a salesman selling cybersecurity and voice-over Internet Protocol VoIP software products. When Dave turned 50, he started shifting into coaching. He saw it as a way to hone his own skills to help others uncover things within them or to pursue things they felt were out of their reach. Dave specializes in two areas of coaching. The first is marriage and relationships, and he has a 46-year relationship with his wife to back up his authority in that area. The second area is personal development and helping people grow or advance to the next level in whatever they want to do. Dave notes that all the real superstars in sports as well as in life have become great because they had strong coaches to point out blind spots and to fine-tune their natural talent. Many people have million-dollar ideas but are too afraid to step out and pursue them. So Dave helps them to develop a pathway to take those first steps toward achieving their dreams. Dave recently completed his first book titled Hello Purpose, which is a 21-day journal people can complete to help them uncover more purpose for their lives. To tell us more about his book and what coaching can do for you, please welcome Dave Jenkins to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Dave. I really appreciate the time. You're a Texas native, right?
Not quite. Born in Louisiana, but as the old saying goes, got to Texas as soon as I could. Texas like you to think. But yeah, originally from a small town, Shreveport, Louisiana, and went there by road of Illinois, first job out of college, and then wanted to get to New Orleans, couldn't get down there. So Dallas was the place. I'm there in Dallas for, God, over how many years? Quite a few.
That's neat. What did you get a degree in college?
You know what? I went to school originally because I wanted to be a sports journalist. I love sports. I played. However, when I got there, this shows you short-sighted thinking. In high school, I did not want to take a typing course. I didn't want to take keyboarding and with my infinite wisdom, I told the school counselor, I'm not going to be a secretary. Why do I need to? So you get in the classes in college to type up your stories and you're going peck because you're not familiar with the keyboard. And all the other people going. And so finally I said, either I need to pick up my speed or pick another major. Big business computer science.
Okay. IT. You were a early adapter to the IT industry, I would imagine.
I was very early. It was the early days of IBM, the big boxes, the big processing. COBOL was the dominant language at the time. But it was fun. It was still the new frontier at that time.
And personal computers weren't even a twinkle in anybody's eye at that point.
Oh, no, not at that point, no.
In fact, wasn't the president of IBM quoted as saying that he feels that the worldwide demand for computers will be 7 a year and that IBM is going to build most of them?
And that's the funny part about that. Here's a guy that's forward-facing, but not forward-thinking. Yeah, but be that as it may, they left the door open and left other entrepreneurs an opportunity, or Steve Jobs being the biggest name if you think of, with that to move forward as well as some money.
So you had a career in information technology. And are you still involved in that?
I am, to a degree. I've moved from coding, from being a systems engineer and managing coders and systems engineers, to now I'm not actually on the other side. I'm in software sales.
Okay, super. And business kind of software?
Business kind of software. I have the ability to do cybersecurity. I'm also doing voice over Internet Protocol as well.
Okay. And then as you turned to 50 and went over it a little bit, you changed directions and became a coach. Why did you decide to become a coach?
That's a great question because I felt somewhat fulfilled in IT, but I really knew that God had some more things for me. And the coach was a great way for me to understand how to hone my skills, to help people to uncover the things that they saw before them, but they felt were kind of out of their reach because I've been in that Sometimes I get in it even now. But someone who can help me to get beyond that. We all need a coach. You think of the great superstar, whether it is Michael Jordan or whether it is a track star, even actors and actresses have coaches. Everybody needs someone to help you to be able to move to that next level.
That's an excellent point, because these superstars really do. They became superstars because they had a coach pointing out their flaws and their blind spots and things like that. But the rest of us very rarely think of hiring a coach or getting involved in that to help us become better.
And part of that is, Greg, and I suffer from that. It's one or two things. You don't feel worthy. You don't think you're worth the investment. Or you're suffering from imposter syndrome, like, oh, I could never be that good. Why even do that? Or maybe a combination of the two. We're so in flux with the picture that we see now that we can't see the picture.
What kind of coaching do you specialize in?
I have two things. I started off in marriage and relationship, obviously, because Phyllis and I, my lovely bride, we've been together for 46 years. And that's a whole other story I'll get into. And then after I hit 55 and turned that next milestone of 60, I became more reflective of my life and some of the things I've done well and some of the things I haven't done well. And it all got to life development, personal development, and then eventually leading me to writing this first book on purpose, uncovering your purpose. Because the worst thing in the world, Miles Monroe has this saying, he says, the richest place in the world, not the mines of South Africa, not the gold in someplace else, but it's the graveyards where so many people have died and not fulfilled their purpose.
Exactly. And they've had these $1 million ideas that they've percolated all their lives, but were afraid to step out and pursue them.
Oh, yeah. Plays and movies and books and just a lot of things. Enterprises that went to the grave with them.
So are you focusing now on marriage and relationships or more on the purpose?
I'm still focusing more on marriage and relationship, but one of the byproducts of releasing the book on purpose has been people have expressed interest in that. And since that's another arm of my coaching service that I'm building, I'm trying to build that up and get programs centered around it and have the ability to do something. I've got a wonderful opportunity in October to speak to a group of church leaders on purpose that was invited because of being on a podcast similar to this.
That's great. I think a lot of people need purpose. Having a purpose is absolutely essential if you're going to have a successful retirement, because living for recreation just doesn't cut it anymore. It's fun for a while, but it doesn't get you out of bed and get you excited about life. Having a purpose does. So that's neat that you're doing that.
I like how you phrase there. Recreational purpose is self-centered, self-focused. Working on your divine purpose is outward-centered. And like you said, it draws you out each day.
We had interviewed your wife, Phyllis Jenkins, a couple of months ago, and she's the one who came up with the idea of a God assignment. She's the one who talked to me about that. It was probably about a year ago that we were communicating with Phyllis. And I love that. So the idea of having a divine purpose falls in line with what she's been doing.
And the beauty of it all, Ephesians 2:10 tells us that we're all created as God's workmanship, divinely by him, unto good work. And as you said before, we can get distracted by some internal things. We can get distracted by our own lack of understanding who we are and so forth. But our purpose is there for us to walk in and to enjoy and to bring fulfillment, not just to ourselves, but to those around.
How did you realize that you had a divine purpose?
When I finally got to the point where I realized, well, you've been trying to avoid this thing for a while, dude. And you get this clarion call from God, or you get this nudging from God, or you get people who confirm things that only you have been talking about as they look at you and they call out a particular attribute, they call out something they see in you, and you realize it's not just you thinking that it is God's place or God's calling upon your life. And then you begin to say, okay, I need to have the courage to step up and step into it. Got to develop that courage to do that. And once you start doing it, it's a third step. We don't need to make big fire steps. And you begin to see the progress, a couple of steps forward, one back, three forward, maybe none back this time. And then you begin to see how it fits, right? If you ever had a pair of shoes that, and they were just a little bit uncomfortable, but the more you wore them, the better they felt.
That's right. Happens to boots all the time.
Yeah, boots are a perfect example. Now, I got to confess something. I'm a Texan now. I don't have a single pair of boots. You just made me think of.
That's funny. You're right, because I remember Phyllis talking about how God gave her this idea to develop her powerful network, her powerful journey. She sat on it for a while, and God kept nudging her to do that, and she still sat on it, and finally put her in the hospital for a while where she had plenty of time to think about, okay, maybe God's serious. I need to go in this direction.
Oh, yeah. And that will happen to some of us. As in Phyllis's case, she had pulmonary embolism. Not just one, she had a blood clot in each lung. And the lady next to her had the same scenario, same critical condition, but she passed, unfortunately. And so the doctor came to tell Phyllis, she said, "You're lucky. The lady next to you is not quite as lucky." Phyllis translated that to being, yeah, I've got a calling. This is a wake-up call. And so for some of us who are out there, we need a wake-up call. We need a 5-minute call, and we need a 2-minute call. But I can tell you just about the biggest thing it's going to start as a dream. For most people, your sense of purpose, your sense of calling will be a dream or vision or something about the future that you imagine.
Is there a difference between a 2-minute wake-up call and a 5-minute call?
I tell you what, I consider a 5-minute wake-up call is something that happens to you for the first time. The 2-minute wake-up call is that when the same thing happens again the second time.
Okay, super. And then by the time it has to happen a third time, you'd better get serious about it, right?
Exactly.
Hey, when did your book come out?
It came out March 1st of this year, 2024. I officially released it April 20th, 2024, right around my birthday, so I wouldn't forget it. And it's been really rewarding to listen to how it's helped people.
Tell us about the book. What does it guide them in doing?
Yeah, the name of the book is 21 Day Journal to Uncovering Your Purpose. Specifically, I chose the word uncovering and not discovering. There's a difference. If you're discovering something, you're going out there and you're hoping. Christopher Columbus discovered America, right? With a lot more than that, of course, because he didn't really land where he thought he was going to land. But discover seems like there's something out there. I don't know what it is. Uncovering means it's there. You pretty much know because of what God has placed in you, what the scripture tells us, pretty much what it is, but you're trying to uncover it, remove the things that are hindering it, and removing some of the obstacles and challenges. Like one of the things that I deal with in the book itself is how to deal with this whole thing about your past mistakes. Sometimes we don't want to move into our purpose because the enemy will remind us, or our consciousness will remind us of our past mistake. Past mistakes are not fatal. They're there to facilitate learning.
That's right. So your book guides people into a process to uncover their purpose.
Yeah, and each day there's a different step in that process. The first 7 days are really just focused around changing our thought process, changing our mind. Let me just give you an idea of some of the chapters in that first 7 days or segment there. Power of surrender. Started the book off with that chapter in particular because sometimes we want our purpose to be some magnificent, marvelous, grandiose thing. And that's wonderful if that's what it is. But if you remember, there are characters in the Bible, they didn't have major roles, but they had major impact.
That's right.
So you have to surrender your thought of what you think that purpose is to what God has for you as you uncover it. Otherwise, you'll look right over it.
A lot of people think that the purpose that's going to come from God is going to require them to uproot their lives and go move overseas and become a missionary. But that's not at all the case. God put us here at this location to serve the people that are already around us, correct?
I love that. And I think you're exactly right. I've made mission trips. I love them. I think they're important. But one of the beauties and I'm getting off on a tangent here, of being in America is there's so many nationalities, so many cultures coming here that if we're fulfilling our purpose, we don't have to travel that far to impact other nations and other cultures. Just be who God called you to be where you're planted.
And the fact
that doesn't mean you don't stop going on mission trips.
Right. The fact that we were made for a time such as this, with all the technology at our disposal, means that we can take our message to the world rather than physically going to the world.
Yes, because we are so interconnected now. You're exactly right.
What will happen at the end of the 21 days when people go through the process?
Excellent. At the end of the 21 days, when you've laid the foundation, which talks about, like I said, surrender, understanding how you have power, getting into his presence, executing gratitude. I think that's a big step, no matter what you do, understanding gratitude. And then moving into understanding purpose. That's the other thing. We begin to break down and rearrange the thought process of what purpose is and how it looks on you. And eventually you get to the point now where you begin to pull these lessons and the things that you've learned through the previous process and sections of the book and begin to look for overlap. Where are there events? Where are there skills? Where are the things God is tugging my heart that when I pull them together, there is an overlap. And in that overlap area, is generally where your purpose is. Now, when you get to that section, you're no longer doing it alone. I really advise you to have a trusted advisor, have a friend who can give you unbiased view of the conditions that you're really trying to evaluate. Because I can do this by myself, but I'm still going to have my filters. Filters may mislead me.
That's a good point about having a friend at your side, because many times we get an idea that we would like to go in this direction. It's like, I think I have a calling to do this. And we talk to the wrong person who starts raining on our parade and said, who's going to want that? Who's going to need it? You can't do it. Who's going to believe you? All this other kind of stuff that feeds into our already negative self-talk that Satan is planting in our minds. And all of a sudden the dream evaporates and we don't take the action that we need to have, even though it still stays with us and gnaws at our soul, saying we should really be doing that. But having a group of people, or at least one good friend who supports you and supports the idea, would help you to move it forward. I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, I love how you said it. One good friend will help you move it forward. And one of the litmus tests to a good friend is someone who does not always say yes to everything you come up with. And someone who doesn't say no to everything that you come up with.
That's right.
We need someone that's got a good balance and has your best interest. When you think about it, if you're around those people, your ability to see your future will always be greatly impacted by three things: your family of origin, your thought process, and the people around you.
You become the sum total of your 5 closest friends, right?
Yeah. There.
So do you serve as in that role as a coach? Can people hire you to be their trusted friend if they can't find anybody who's going to be supportive?
I think in a de facto way I do. As a coach, my real role is to help draw out what's already in you. So it's a lot of observation. I spend a good deal of time with questioning. Anyone who's going to be good at coaching has to be good at question. We've got to understand questions. You got to understand the point of questions. And then you got to understand how to draw things out of people. Because generally, just like the cover, my book title, it's uncovering what's there. It's hidden by layers of maybe some self-doubt. It's hidden by layers of maybe uncertainty. It's hidden by some layers. And those questions help to remove the layers that are pinning down that potential and that purpose.
So at the end of the 21 days, people should have a good idea of what their purpose may be. Then what's the next step?
Then the next step I tell them in the book is, when you understand that, is now begin to take steps toward it. Now begin to make network, relationships, involvement with people, because it's still not finely tuned. You just got a good first draft. But as you move along now, you've lost a lot of the hindrances, a lot of the obstacles, a lot of things that will hold you back, because now you're able to think more spiritually, more forward thinking, so that as you have to make adjustments, it doesn't become, oh, the wheel came off the car. No, just needed to change that tire to a different size, because what I'm doing is either bigger than what I thought, or it needs a different all-terrain tire.
And the whole idea of taking that essential first step, it's so critical because we can sit on the idea or sit on our belief of purpose for a long time and not take any action on it. And it's still just an idea at that point. But a lot of people, I think, especially when they're over 50, and the purpose may involve like technology. They think they have to go in and learn all this new stuff before they can even get started. What would you say about people who think they need to do that?
The beautiful thing about technology, Greg, as opposed to when years ago when I started, and I'm a little older than you really needed great technical skill. Now, the idea of technology is more about what it is you want to accomplish. And then there's something there off the shelf that's going to be as easy as learning what buttons to push, when to push, because it takes care of all the other stuff for you.
There's an app for that.
I think the biggest hurdle that there's an app for that. I think the biggest net is we go off and we grab a solution without fully understanding what the problem is that we're trying to solve and what we need to use that for. So then we're trying to force that solution to fit that problem systematically as well as computer-wise, and therefore you get frustrated. At that point, you can get frustrated. It's if I decided I'm going to take a screwdriver to do the job of a wrench, I'm going to be definitely frustrated. I know a tool, but it's not the right tool.
That's a good point. So did you have to learn any new skills before you went into coaching or before you started getting into writing about purpose?
I think coaching, Phyllis and I both made a conscious decision, an intentional decision to get certified as coaches.
Okay.
We felt like that would be great, not only for us, but the people we would serve. And certification can take a lot of different forms. Some people want to go through universities to do that. Others will go to certified programs through ICF, whatever it takes. Maybe yours is maybe not that formal, but what you really want to do is begin to understand the tools of coaching. Coaching is different from mentoring or talking or just having a cup of coffee. There are certain elements across all those things, but you got to have the skill set to help you to understand. Don't jump into, and this was my big thing, don't jump into solving the problem for them. Be the guide to show them where to go to get the solution.
That's a good point, because you think a professional football player, for example, knows football inside and out. They get paid very well to do that, but they still have a coach that helps them fine-tune where they're going.
And you know what's amazing? I'm not a big New England Patriots fan, or I'm not a big Alabama college football fan, but Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots and Nick Saban just retired from Alabama. I watched every documentary about them because they're coaches, but more than that, they observe people, they observe changes and trends, and they look at things and they try to pull them together, because at the core of being a good coach is, you understand blocking and tackling in football, but you got to understand the people you're working with and the system you're putting them in and the position they need to be in. The same thing with coaching. Have a system that will help you to observe, to understand, and to place your coach, the person you're coaching, in the best possible position. You hear that all the time when you talk to athletes. The coaches put us in the best position to succeed. And that's what you're supposed to do. At that point, the coach has done that, but it's totally up to that person to execute what they've already been talking about.
That's a good point as well. It comes down to knowing your why as well. There's something behind the motivation that propels you to do that. So you have an idea, but why do you want to pursue it? Why do you want to write a book or start a community or something to that effect? And coaching can help people identify that why and really dive deep into that, because that why, I believe, is what moves people forward when things get tough and everything gets tough.
Whether it's you and what you've been doing to help people over 50 that are centered on what's the next step, or Phyllis, her powerful journey. And if any of you are listening and you want to get involved in writing and you need someone to coach you and help you, Phyllis Jenkins at phyllisjenkins.com is a great person to start with, my personal favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But one other aspect that you made me think about, and Belichick and Saban really reflect this, they also listen to their players, because their players give them feedback. And good coaches don't just know the way. They're not the sage on the stage. They're also learners.
How does that help people?
What that really helps is you're validating the individual's experience, which we all love validation. And then secondly, you're adapting that into your coaching style, where it helps you to begin to develop and broaden what you can do. Because, oh yeah, this person may have similar challenges, but because of their personality, how they process things, how I need to bring the solution toward them is different.
Now, you and Phyllis both got certified as coaches. Can you tell us where you got that certification?
We did our IFC certification through a organization in California. It was a real strong intensive. And what I loved about it, there were people who were practitioners of NLP, practitioners of whole health, natural processes. Mm-hmm. And then there were people who were practitioners of a lot of different things. So after hours and home breaks, being able to just talk with them and get a feel for how they saw life, how they saw coaching, it kind of cross-breeds in the home.
Okay. You and Phyllis have been married for 46 years, which is remarkable in today's society. What do you attribute that to?
Nothing but the grace of God. Let me give you a backstory. So Phyllis and I grew up in Louisiana. Matter of fact, in roughly the same city, but totally different environments, totally different cultures, almost. We're both African-American, but our culture is still different, environments definitely different. Phyllis grew up in a real strong, loving community. Everybody had good jobs. Everybody had owned their homes. And so they were middle class. And they had the structure of, in Phyllis's family, everybody stayed married. It was truly to death do you part. Her dad and mom stayed married for over 62 years before he passed. Maybe it might have been 60. Uncles and aunts all stayed married and so forth. Now imagine that type of environment, that type of culture where you understand commitment to death do you part. You understand you have access to resources and finances and things like that. All right. So now Dave, on the other hand, grew up in the part of Shreveport that, let's just call it, it was ghettoish. It was truly the rough neighborhood. It was a place that even the police locked their doors when they drove through. And so there were a lot of crime, a lot of drugs, very poor school systems, underfunded. But from a perspective of family, my dad, his parents divorced. My dad divorced when I was young. I never seen a committed marriage. I didn't know what that was like or have any ideas about that. As a matter of fact, if you get married, you like it for a while, don't like it, get a divorce, try it again. Didn't like a pair of shoes, get another pair of shoes. But then the big turn happened after we started dating. When we got married, I got really committed to learning more about being a Christian. I got in some great churches where the pastors were not just preachers, but they were teachers, and they modeled things. They modeled some great things in front of me. And then it began to change my mindset. It is hard for most of us to achieve what we cannot see. And then being able to see what that looks like gave me an idea of, there's a better option. There's a better way. And so I abandoned any of those thoughts, any of those old thought processes, and fully grasp and fully wrap my arms around God's role and plan for a man, first of all, how to be a man, God's way, and then for marriage.
That's great. I like that you got that perspective because it's hard-earned and it's not something that comes naturally to people. And you had mentioned to death do us part. That was the old wedding vows. Back when wedding vows really meant something, people did take it to heart. But you know, it's disconcerting that the people over the age of 50, how many of them get divorced, myself included. And it's like with people that still believe in till death do us part, they are staying in a relationship, but spinning their tires. It's not going anywhere. They're not close at all, but they're still married. There's got to be a different type of relationship in the one that you're describing versus somebody who is just sticking it out because, we made a commitment to death till us part.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I learned in my road toward understanding relationship, marriage, is that if a marriage doesn't work, for whatever the reason it may be, sometimes, especially in the church, we place a stigma on people who are going through divorce. And it's very unfair. That is very unfair because we don't know all the conditions. We don't know all the things that are going on. What we have to do is accept the fact with them that it happened, and then help them and encourage them to whatever's next in their life. They should be single for the rest of their life, great. If it's maybe to remarry, that's great. But whatever it may be, we're just there to just help and encourage that. Now, on the other side, Greg, there are people who are married and miserable, married and unhappy, married and they're more like roommates than anything else. And if the truth be told, they're just waiting to see who's going to kick the bucket first.
That's right.
I've had a couple of people that I've coached, like a couple of marriages, and by the grace of God, they were both restored. They both got back to being loving and having a fulfilling marriage. A lot of it deals with bitterness, resentment, and unrealistic expectations that are piled up over years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever you call it. If we're not really honest about our stuff, who we are, both husband and wife, then that pile becomes so big and so burdensome that it causes a big separation. It's like putting a mountain between two people.
You had mentioned the idea of managing expectations, and it brought to mind experience that my youngest daughter had when she got married. She was the first of my 3 daughters to be married, and she wanted to get married at a church in Illinois. And they required them to go through premarital counseling, which a lot of churches do, and that was helpful. But what separated them from all the others is for that first year of marriage, they were matched to an experienced couple who had been married over 25 years. So twice a month, the couples got together. Once as couples, and then once the men got together and the women got together so that they could manage those expectations and talk about them and encourage people. So when it just gives me a little shivers when I think about people like you who have outstanding marriages. And if you're looking for purpose in your life, mentoring these newlyweds would be a huge benefit because it gets their marriage off on the right foot and starts that managed expectations so that they can grow it in a healthy way.
And it's so powerful. I love that model. I had not heard about that before. I'm going to keep that in mind. But yeah, if you think about it, when we first get married, we have all of these grandiose ideas about how it's going to be. Oh, we're never going to have an argument, or if you do, it won't last but 5 minutes. And we're going to always agree on this, and it's going to always be sunshine, and you're going to fall asleep in my arms, and it's going to be at night when we go to sleep, it's going to be wonderful. And the first time they fall asleep in your arm at night and they start snoring, you're like, what?
Exactly.
How do I turn this off?
I agree. We had talked about Christians and the perspective that the church, or burden that the church puts on some people. I think that's relatively true more for men maybe than for women because of the concept of happy wife, happy life. And they say that it's up to us as Christian men to do whatever we can to make our wife happy. And that just seems so unfair to men because they're then responsible for somebody else's happiness. And happiness is a decision, right?
It is. It's a personal decision. Here's what I found. Again, remember we talked about earlier about Saban and Belichick being great coaches, but they also listen to their players. I was coaching millennials who were married. Millennials and Gen Xers, totally different mindset, right? And I said that same statement, happy wife, happy life. But the wife said to me, happy spouse, happy life.
Happy spouse, happy house is what I've heard as well.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I'm saying to myself, that is genius. It's great. But what it does is, like you said, what it does is it takes that responsibility of the man has to do this, yield to this, and yield to that, and really release his responsibility of guiding the house, becoming more delighting the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so you learn those things, and I applied that to my coaching after that.
Your website talks about a perfect, imperfect marriage. How do you define a perfect, imperfect marriage?
Dave and Phyllis. Oh, perfect in the aspect that you are committed to doing things God's way. Perfect in the sense that you're willing to forgive each other, not hold on to any bitterness. Imperfect in the fact that you have those things that you do that just run your spouse up the wall. And if you try to change them, asking that individual to change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about me for just a moment. I think I told you earlier, I grew up poor, I grew up very frugal. And Phyllis was talking to some friends when we first got married, and they said, "What's the biggest thing you've learned by being married to your husband?" And Phyllis said, "I learned the term generic. I never knew what generic was until I married. Generic beans, generic detergent, generic this, that, and the other." He always brought me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my DNA. I'm going to always, with certain exceptions, gravitate toward, okay, is there a low-cost option? Let's take that. Now, if that's going to bother her, she'd have major problems.
But it's part of your DNA. And that's where some of it comes to the managing the expectations of the relationship. When she realizes that you prefer generics simply because of your upbringing and your need to save money, then it should fall into a different perspective than Dave just likes the cheap stuff. Dave is more concerned about our family and our long-term financial well-being because he's devoted to the generics more than the name brands. I can see where understanding that mindset would really help a relationship.
And what happens is if Dave's cheapness doesn't bring into those elements that you said, hey, we're building something long-term. I see the savings account. I see some other things happening. Well, we can take better vacations because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But if Dave is just being cheap and no benefits come to the family out of his being cheap, then you're just feeling deprived at the end of the day.
That's right.
So there's a big buffer into that. Now, on the other hand, when we first got married, I remember one Saturday morning, Phyllis got up, got dressed, got ready to go. I said, "Honey, where are you going?" "Well, I'm going shopping." "We're shopping where?" See, that never in my mind that you get up on Saturday morning intentionally to go shopping. What is that about? You're going to get dressed, go somewhere to spend money for stuff that you may not really need. And so I had to readjust my expectations there because that's a part of her experience. That's a part of her outlet. And it's not just a female thing. It could be for guys. We buy bigger toys, bigger things, cars, stereo, whatever, boats, or whatever it may be. I remember golf clubs for me.
In your coaching or on your website, when you're talking about coaching, you say that you can help people live intentionally. How do people live intentionally?
It's not allowing other people and circumstances to set the agenda for your life. Living in default mode. I get up this morning, I go to work, I come home, I eat a dinner, I watch something, I scroll the internet, I'm on social media, and I go to bed, or I rinse and repeat. It's intentionally putting things in place that glorify God, that gives him an opportunity to see his return on his investment in our life. And again, the early statement, it doesn't have to be a major milestone, doesn't have to be big headlines, but it does have to align with.
And one of the things that people might misunderstand is when they hear you need a purpose for your life, especially when you're over 50, for them it sounds like work. That means you want me to go get another job. And it's not at all. But when you're talking about the routine that people fall into, I see that all the time in Sun City, Arizona. Yeah. People retire there. It's America's first retirement community. And that community is 60,000 people, has 8 golf courses and 8 recreation centers. So people retire, move to Sun City, and they're just going to kick back and relax for the rest of their lives. And after about 6 months of that, they are bored out of their minds and without a sense of purpose. So it's got to be intentional. What is the difference between a purpose and a hobby? Do you have any idea?
Well, that's a great question. Let's get back to what you said earlier. If we're not careful, we will gravitate after putting in tremendous work hours, being very gifted in enterprise or being a teacher or being a speaker or whatever it may be, and then said, okay, I want to sit back on my laurel. The one thing that I noticed in the Bible, and the guy told me this years ago, and I discounted it, you don't see retirement as a philosophy or a way of life in the Bible at all.
Not at all.
You really don't, because go ahead.
In fact, Jesus said in one of his sermons, you fool. He talked about the man who build the bigger barns, tear down the barns and build bigger ones so that he can store more stuff and accumulate more wealth, and then kick back and enjoy life, take it easy. And Jesus said, you fool, you don't know whether your life will be demanded to you this very day.
Yes. So what changes is a hobby is something that you can do on the side that allows you to have recreational release or fun, or maybe your hobby is traveling, maybe it's collecting items. Those things are like, okay, this is where I get out of my stress zone, and this is something I like to do because it grew up in my family, whatever it may be. The problem that we get into, maybe more in American culture than others, and you're probably much more proficient at this, Greg, than I am, is that we see the viability and the usefulness of people capped at a certain age.
Yes.
And so when you reach that age, whatever it is, and unless you're just super spectacular at what you do, you're not deemed useful anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're not deemed productive anymore. You may not even be deemed to have enough of the skill sets to keep up and stay abreast with the rest of your coworking team. I still work. I still go to a 9 to 5. And one of the things that my manager told me the other day, he says, could tell this 22-year-old that you don't produce as much as Dave does. Dave is way out producing you. His activity levels are way off the charts compared to you. And the difference is when Dave goes to work, he has the mindset of, I'm here to help the company, the customers of the company. And if I do those things well, I know financially I'm going to be okay. Mm-hmm. My motivation is not just to get through another day. So when you live in purpose, you begin to realize, hey, I may be 50, I may be 55, and I may have to slow down. Maybe some physical factors will cause me to slow down. That's perfectly okay. But I still have value in the lessons that I've learned that I could share with other people. It could be your successes. It could be your achievements. It could be your accomplishments. But people also learn from your mistake, from your failures, from things you did that didn't go quite right, but eventually we recovered from. What was that old saying? A mistake isn't fatal or something to that?
It's not final. Not final or fatal.
It's not
right?
final. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, or fatal. Unless you let it be.
That's a good point.
Now, that's the part I add on there, unless you allow it to. We have this wonderful opportunity, especially if you're able to retire from a full-time job, you're in relatively good health. You do need a little time to yourself. You do need a little time to explore and travel, but it shouldn't all be about your hobby, your recreation. It should be about that legacy you're building. Purpose gives you the foundation to build a legacy to honor God. Purpose gives you the foundation to build a legacy to honor God. We're operating in our purpose. We're going to leave a legacy. It's going to honor God. Maybe it's a financial legacy. Maybe it is understanding how to operate in different things. Or maybe it's spending that time with your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, somebody else's grandchildren.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And infusing that into them.
That makes me wonder, a hobby can become a purpose, especially if it involves other people. So if you like to fish all day, for example, go out every day by yourself and you fish. It's relaxing. It's good. You get the fish. It's a nice hobby, but it's not really a purpose. Mm-hmm. However, if you take somebody with you and teach that individual, especially a youngster, how to fish, now you've developed a hobby for them and it becomes their passion as well. And you help them fall in love with that. And it just helps them and it helps you. So you've used your hobby as a way for a purpose.
Yeah. but it has to be intentional. You got to have some idea. What am I going to teach them? What am I going to share with them? What part of their lives have I been observing that God wants me to speak to and speak into? Great. That's a wonderful thing. If you're into woodworking, what a better way to bring some young person there and can do that and learn that.
That's right.
Golf, you get plenty of time to golf. One of the great things I learned about golfing when I was really into it is golfing teaches you how to center and focus. And you can translate those lessons into life.
That's a good point. Yeah. You look at the professional golfers and they have to learn how to put behind them the bad shot from 3 holes ago and move forward like you're starting over again.
And what they also do is they think, okay, I see myself hitting this shot. I see myself coming off the tee. I see my approach shot. You begin to visualize what you want to actualize in your life. And that's the big thing. I believe if nothing else, us over 50, if we just teach people the whole concept, because some of us are just not learning it, that, boy, if I spent a little bit more time in meditation and prayer, a little bit more time visualizing the path that I need to go down, the things that I needed to execute on, the business that I needed to build, the book that I needed to write, then that's great. I would have done better.
I understand, Dave, that you have a free webinar coming up that you are going to help people identify the power of purpose. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. One of the things that God really pressed on my heart in 2023, as well as first part of 2024, is give his people, anybody, the opportunity to have a means, a way to connect with each other, to have a community of folks who will talk about purpose. Because purpose is sometimes an ever-changing thing. Mm-hmm. It may start off as something and it evolves later on, and maybe somebody else will speak something into you that clicks and it becomes your purpose. So what I want to do is have this gathering here at the end of the month where people can come together. We'll start talking about our purpose principles. We'll start talking about how to develop a mindset of purpose. And then we'll be sharing ideas around that, encouraging one another, and just creating community out of that. Because when you bring like-minded people together who have portions, pieces, or maybe all of the picture, it helps everybody in that community.
I agree. And the idea of the purpose changes, that is absolutely correct.
That's exactly right. Every stage, every step of our lives has been leading us to a certain point,
right,
for a certain reason. And we acquire tools as we travel through that. And, oh yeah, this is the size wrench I need at this stage in my life. But when you get to the next stage, that wrench may not be applicable anymore. So you take another one and that adjustment happens, that purpose changes. When you think about it, everybody, every place, even trees, their purpose changes as they evolve.
How can people connect with you if they'd like to hire you as a coach or just get to know more about what purpose might exist for them?
I would love to just have the opportunity to talk to anybody about anything. And one of the easiest ways to do that is just email me. If you want to be a part of the Power Purpose webinar in a month, or you just want to talk, or you're interested in maybe talk with me as a marriage relationship coach or a life purpose coach, just email me. My email address is dave@davejenkinscoaching.com. Dave, D-A-V-E, at davejenkinscoaching.com.
And that's all it takes to register for that Power of Purpose free webinar that you're going to have?
Exactly. Just send me an email. Hey, I want to be in the webinar, or I want to talk to you, or I think you're so fun. You need to learn some things. No, I want to talk to you because I know I'm going to learn.
There you go. I appreciate your time today, Dave. This has been very inspirational to me, and I'm sure it will be to other people as well. I ordered your book, Hello to Purpose, just before I left on a 7-week trip to visit my daughters. It's waiting for me at home in Arizona, and I can't wait to get there and get started on it.
I'm so honored that you did, but thank you so very much, Greg, for having me on this podcast. Thank you for having the podcast, because it's an expression of your love and a part of what you know God has called you to do, and it's impacting people. And I want to thank all the listeners who are going to listen to this and other podcasts for not just listening, but taking action. I want to just encourage anybody who listens to this podcast of yours or any podcast of yours, take something away that you're going to commit to taking action on.
That's great advice. I need to apply that to myself as well. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you so very much. God bless.
I was inspired by Dave Jenkins' work as a coach. He's right. In order to get better at anything, even life, you need a personal coach. We can often get distracted by our lack of understanding as to who we are and what we were created to do. A good coach, like Dave, can help people see through the fog to discover opportunities ideally suited to their natural talents, learned skills, and unique life experiences. I like Dave's explanation that we often experience different wake-up calls during our lives. The 5-minute wake-up call is something that happens to you the first time, which opens your eyes. The 2-minute wake-up call is something that has occurred a second time. Dave said, if it happens again, then you better start getting serious about whatever God has put on your mind or on your heart. Purpose is something that is uncovered, not discovered. It's often always been there. Dave said finding purpose requires you to remove things that are preventing you from getting started and removing obstacles that prevent you from advancing in that direction. A coach also helps peel back layers of doubt and uncertainty to get to the heart of what's holding someone back. Once the foundation of purpose is set, then they need to build a framework for living it out. Dave mentioned the importance of having the right friends by your side who encourage you to step into your purpose rather than discourage you from getting started. After all, if you succeed, it may make them feel uncomfortable and force them to address their own limitations. A good coach is not necessarily the sage or expert. Rather, he or she is a good listener who asks good questions to challenge people to think outside the box and overcome any limitations they put on themselves. I can see why Dave is such a good coach. He's a great listener and he has keen insight as well. He can apply both of those skills to helping you discover a greater purpose for your life or advancing your marriage and other relationships too. Dave offers a free webinar from time to time to help people identify the power of purpose and how it can change their lives. To learn more information and to connect with Dave, visit www.davejenkinscoaching.com. His book, Hello Purpose, is available on Amazon and in other bookstores. That's all I have for this week's show. If you'd like help in identifying a purpose for your life or to get help planning your next steps, I'm offering a complimentary brainstorming session to members of the Forward from 50 Facebook community. For details, connect with me on Facebook or visit www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like the show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.